we now set our sights at one of my favorite segments of the year, which is our Indianapolis 500 starting grid preview. If you're unfamiliar, what we do is we pick a winner from each row. So we go through row 11. I tell you who's on that row. We pick who we think from that row could potentially win the race. So we'll start with row 11. We'll go back and forth until we get to row 1. And it's just kind of an interesting mental exercise to go through, because it's not like you're picking from the entire field. You're just like, who of these 3 drivers that qualified in row 10, who do I think could win from that row? So starting, of course, with row 11. On the outside, starting 33rd, you have Graham Rahal. In the middle, you have Marcus Ericsson starting 32nd. And on the inside, you have Catherine Legg, who is starting 31st. And I mentioned it in the intro, the first part of the podcast here, that row 11 is actually a little bit easier, because when you have a former winner in Marcus Ericsson, that's kind of where I default to. It's kind of a cheat code having a former winner on the last row. Not only was he the 2022 champ, but he was also runner-up last year. I kind of wanted to go Catherine Legg here just because, like, I just think that would be fun. But Ericsson's just too good not to take, so long as he keeps his foot on the gas and doesn't pull a J.R. Hildebrand on the final lap of the race.
Yeah, I got to go with Marcus Ericsson there as well, just because I don't trust Graham Rahal's pit crew to keep the tires on that thing. But it is kind of surprising, Ericsson running Andretti power, for him to be all the way back there, and some of the other Andretti drivers to have to do well is a little bit of a surprise. So yeah, Marcus Ericsson from row 11 for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, of those, we had Ericsson, who didn't keep his foot on the gas on the last lap. You have Graham Rahal's pit crew not tightening the tires. Catherine Legg stayed in the gas when she hit the wall off of 4 in qualifying. So, I mean, of those 3 drivers, that's who I trust, keeping her foot in the gas and crossing the finish line. Row 10, on the outside, starting 30th, you've got Pietro Fittipaldi. In the middle, you've got Connor Daly. And then on the inside, you've got Christian Lundgaard. And I'm going with Connor Daly here. He's the only driver on this row with a top 10 at the Indy 500. He's got 3 of them, 2 of those coming in the last couple of years. And also, as a Jeff Gordon fan, I would be doing an incredibly huge disservice if I did not go with the guy who's going to be rocking Jeff Gordon-themed gloves, Jeff Gordon-themed shoes. He also paid homage to the colleges around Ball State with his helmet. He had like all the logos on his helmet at one point during the month of May. So I called him on Twitter the drippiest driver in the paddock for IndyCar. He's just had the drip this May, and he's had the drip in the past as well. But yeah, I'm going with Connor Daly as my favorite out of row 10.
Yeah, give me Connor Daly here as well. I really hope Dryan and Reinbold has something better for race day than they did for qualifying. Connor he's a really good race car driver. It's just unfortunate that he's just not in a little bit better equipment this year.
I was really when I saw the Jeff Gordon themed. I keep wanting to say cleats. They're not cleats. The shoes and right, yeah, the shoes and the gloves. I was like, man, if he could have pulled out a livery like that, I can't remember what a sponsor is, but I was like,
I'm not sure.
How married to those colors are you, the brand that sponsors Connor Daly's car? Because I would have loved to see like a rainbow scheme or a flame theme. I saw when I was kind of just piecing through when I was trying to find pictures for the throwback video that we did, like about a possible throwback weekend for IndyCar. Check that out. It's getting a lot of views. Thank you guys for the support on that one. One of the cars I found was someone who in iRacing who had created like a Jeff Gordon IndyCar. And so like when I saw those like with the flames, and so when I saw the cleats, I actually did it this time, the shoes and the gloves for Connor Daly, I was like, man, if his livery could be something similar to that, I would love it. Hey, look, idea for next year, Connor Daly's crew.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know who is at the track sitting in a pit box? Jeff Gordon.
Right.
With Arrow McLaren. So
I suppose, but like something. Hey, look, if Ross Chastain can drive a UPS car with no affiliation to Robert Yates Racing, and I mean, I don't think Robert Yates Racing exists in any capacity anymore, but like if you can mix it up a little bit. So yeah, no, I was just like, man, if that livery could exist, I would love it. In row, I'm gonna skip to row 9. In row 9, I was on row 8 in my on my rundown here. Row 9 on the outside in 27th, you've got Linus Lundqvist. In the middle, you've in 26th, you've got Romain Grosjean. And on the inside, you've got Tom Blomqvist. And I actually went Tom Blomqvist here because there's way too much crashing on this row for me. You've got Lundqvist, who crashed in practice. You've got Grosjean, who has crashed out of both Indy 500s he's been in. Because I wanted to go Grosjean here because I just can't quit that guy. I want him to win a race so bad. And he just, whether it be...
You're a fan of Fat John.
I'm a Fat John fan. As Fat Craig, I love Fat John, you know? And I just want him to do well. And he just can't seem to get his luck to turn. But yeah, no, I went Tom Blomqvist here just because he's the only driver on this list that does not put it in the fence in some capacity at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, unless there's a IMSA race that I'm not aware of that he crashed. But so yeah, I'm going Tom Blomqvist here.
Yeah, I'm going Tom Blomqvist here because Roman Grosjean has, he's won Formula. He's been up there at the top in Formula One and everything. Tom Blomqvist has won big time races in his career, most notably the Rolex Daytona 24 Hour. So he knows he can do long distances. He can. I mean, he is one of the better race car drivers. So I think out of that row, it's definitely him that has a shot.
In row 8, on the outside, you've got Christian Rasmussen. In the middle, you've got Stingray Robb. And on the inside, it's Augustine Canapino. And I went Christian Rasmussen here. He was the fastest rookie in Monday's practice session. He was running 6th. He qualified 24th, but he was en route to improving on that time until his second qualifying attempt was waved off at one of the more peculiar moments of Saturday's qualifying. I think Rasmussen could have a good run. Stingray Robb crashed last year, and I don't have a ton of faith in Canapino. So it's kind of Rasmussen by default, but it's also Rasmussen because he has been strong as of late here at Indy.
I got to go different than you at some point. I love all your points on Christian Rasmussen, but for this row, just so much unknown and so little experience. I'm going to go Stingray Robb just because I would love to see the name of Stingray Robb in victory lane for the Indy 500. I mean, that'd be awesome.
That would be, just because of how he's run in his short IndyCar career, that would be just the biggest, like, mind, you know what, if, you're standing there, after, 3 or 4 o'clock on Sunday being like, Stingray Robb just won the Indy 500. That's
the kind of the way I felt after Alexander Rossi.
I was thinking the same thing.
Won the 100. Like, who?
Because you were like, it's the 100th. It's got to be like Dixon or Elio or I don't know. Franchitti wasn't still running then, but I was like, it was some big name, and then it was rookie that coasted to the victory, and you're like, I feel robbed. Right, you're like, okay. I mean,
can I demand a refund on my ticket?
What do I do? No, I that's great that you said that because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, yeah, 100th Indy 500. Who's it gonna be? And it's like, who's Alexander Rossi? Now, thankfully, he's not. I mean, not necessarily thankfully, because he still won it. It's no matter how he did after that. But he's built. He was a name before. He built himself into more of a name after that point. But it was like, I don't know how to feel about this right now.
Yeah.
Row 7. Speaking of Scott Dixon and the names that you know about, row 7. This is a tough row because Right. This is the row, I think, kind of like we had last year, only it's further back as far as just having so much Indy 500 experience. I think Tony Donahue was saying on X that he, like, this is either the first or second, like, most experienced row in.
Ended up being second. Somebody mentioned one to him, and he was like, "Oh, I completely forgot about that."
1991, I think is what it was. Or
Yeah, that had like Mears, Foyt, and I forget who else it was, but it was like a crazy amount of experience on that row.
In row 7, you've got Scott Dixon on the outside, who is the lap leader for the Indy 500. He's a winner as well. You've got Elio Castroneves, who has won 4 Indy 500s. And then you've got Marco Andretti, who was, just a few hundred feet from winning one himself in 2006. And it's tough to pick on this row, obviously. There's so much Indy 500 experience and success on this row. Scott Dixon hasn't had the best luck in pursuit of his second Indy 500 win. But what it comes down to for me is you're either picking someone to win their 5th in Elio, which hasn't happened, or you're picking Andretti to win, and Andretti hasn't won at the Indy 500 since 1969. So it's either something that hasn't happened, in 55 years, or something that's never happened. So you know what? Dixon's luck has to turn at some point at Indy. So I went with Scott Dixon here. I think he's the most likely to win from row 7.
Yeah, I know. I think they figured out their engine issues, and he's performing better. I'm going to go with Elio. I mean, it's Indy. Indy and Elio just kind of go hand in hand with each other, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him up there at the end battling for the win. I don't think many people would be all that surprised. So yeah, give me Elio from this row. And how cool would that be though to see absolute history?
Yeah,
just a few years apart. Absolute history. Nobody's ever done it before. And if there's somebody that if they did it, it would be one of the best things ever for the sport, it's Elio. Oh,
for sure. I agree 100% on that one. I want that. That there's a lot of things I would love to see this weekend, and that's definitely high on the list. Now row 6, if you guys have ever watched our sectional previews for high school football or basketball, there's some as we go through those where especially with basketball, it's just easy to pick because we're like, yeah, that's the only above 500 team in that sectional, so let's just say who we think that is, and we're going to move on from there. That's how I feel about row 6. Because in this row you have on the outside Kiffin Simpson, in the middle you have Ed Carpenter, and on the inside you have Marcus Armstrong. Now the reason I say that is because he's the Ed Carpenter is the only non-rookie on this row. So you have Kiffin Simpson, who is a rookie, and you have Marcus Armstrong, who was a rookie last year but is finally on the oval. So neither of those two drivers have ever run the Indy 500. So that's why I'm going Ed Carpenter here. Also, Ed Carpenter starts 17th, and that's where Joseph Newgarden started last year. So that's something to kind of keep of note. But and as we've talked about, Ed Carpenter Racing has had a pretty solid May so far. So Ed Carpenter is my pick from row 6.
Yeah, give me Ed Carpenter here too. I wouldn't be shocked if Marcus Armstrong was up there, but give me the experience of Ed Carpenter. Let him get a good run, and maybe he'll drive it off into the sunset.
Row 5. On the outside in 15th, we have Callum Ilott. In the middle, we've got Alex Palou in 14th, and on the inside in 13th, it's Colton Herta. And I had a tough time with this one. I went a couple different angles. Of course, I gave Callum Ilott some love earlier. You have Colton Herta, who was the points leader coming into May. So there's a couple different angles there, but I went Alex Palou. We've been looking at Palou and Herta because those are the two it came down to for me. Herta has run 5 Indy 500s and has only finished higher than he qualified twice. So he's underperformed more than he has overperformed. Palou has not come from this far back before in the Indy 500, but he's finished 2nd, 9th, and 4th. I know that was, like I said, I know he started higher in those circumstances, but He has done pretty solid for himself ever since coming to Ganassi, as far as the Indy 500 is concerned. So I'm going Alex Palou from row 5.
I'm going Colton Herta here. Herta has consistently been up near the top of the speed charts, except for qualifying. So I think he's got something. His car is better set for race day conditions and whatnot. So I'm going with Colton Herta, and honestly, I believe Colton Herta will be up in the front before too long.
We now enter the top 12, the fast 12, as we go into row 4 here. On the outside, you've got Ryan Hunter-Reay. In the middle, you've got Kyle Kirkwood, and on the inside, you have Takuma Sato. Now, a lot of debating on this row. You've got a former winner in Hunter-Reay. You've got a former winner in Takuma Sato. You have Kyle Kirkwood, who I had in the championship tier at the beginning of the year. He hasn't really done much to back that up, but could this be a breakout for Kirkwood? So it was really hard to decide between Hunter-Reay and Sato, but I go with Sato because he's not just because he's a two-time champ. But he's won both since RHR won his. So Ryan Hunter-Reay won in 2014. Sato has won in 17 and 20. So he's won his 2 since Ryan Hunter-Reay has won his. And the second point from that is that Takuma Sato has done it with 2 different teams. And he's done it with a team that is not one of those like top tier teams in the sport. Sato has not just won with Andretti, but he also has won with Rahal Letterman, who he's with this year. Whereas Ryan Hunter-Reay has not only not won in a decade, he's not won since he's left Andretti, which, he only left Andretti a couple of years ago, but still, he has not, performed at that high level since then. So I'm going with Takuma Sato here.
Give me Ryan Hunter-Reay here. He's got the experience. He's having a really good month, kind of an unexpectedly good month. And I think that momentum carries on into this weekend.
It is very possible. Obviously the higher we get on this list,
it's going to be harder.
Right. So yeah, no, I completely, those are, it was tough to pick between Sato and Ryan Hunter-Reay because they both have had pretty solid Mays so far. Row number 3, we're in the top 10 now. On the outside, you have Felix Rosenqvist. In the middle, you've got Pato O'Ward, and on the inside, you've got Rinus VeeKay. And I went with Pato O'Ward. He's the only one on this row that has consistently run well on race day. He was 6th in 2020. He was 4th in 2021, 2nd in 2022, and he was battling up front last year before, pushing it maybe a little bit too far against Marcus Ericsson and ending up hitting the wall, and he ends up finishing 24th. So he's run well every single year. He's been at the 500. And then between VeeKay and Rosenqvist, they've all been hit or miss on race day. Rosenqvist, his finishes are all not very spectacular. And then with VeeKay, he either finishes in the top 10 or he's like in the, outside the top 30. So, it's just not as consistent for those two, which is why I went with Pato O'Ward. Plus McLaren has been amazing this month. So,
yeah, I'm going with Pato O'Ward here too. He seems to figure it out come race day, and he's not typically up there in the front for qualifying, but race day, he's up there battling, and I will not be surprised if I could honestly see this turning into a Penske versus Arrow McLaren race. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, and it'd be fun to watch too. I'd be excited to see that.
Yeah, me too.
Row number 2 on the outside in 6th, you've got Santino Ferrucci. In the middle, you've got Kyle Larson. And on the inside, you've got Alexander Rossi. And you know me, B. Scott. Give me the story any day of the week. Give me Kyle Larson from this row. He's been fast this May. He was in the conversation for the pole. So it's not just, hey, you see a driver do the double. It's cool. You're like, okay. And, Like Kurt Busch did it last time. He wasn't. I mean, Kurt Busch still qualified 12th, so it's not like he was in the back of the pack. But like, you don't see kind of the like excitement and buildup that we've seen with Kyle Larson. It's because Kyle Larson is in his prime. We've talked about it last year. I mean, or last week. He's won a NASCAR Cup Series title. He's won the Coke 600. He's won the Rolex 24 at Daytona. He's won all kind of dirt track races. He wins pretty much every style of racing he dabbles in. And talking about the story, I want to know what happens. I want to know what happens if he wins the race. Does he still fly to Charlotte and run the Coke 600?
He has to. He has to.
Right. Does he
contractual obligations as a points driver?
Well, but also like, could he win both races? Because I think that's a possibility. Does he do they give him the glass of milk? And he's on the helicopter doing like a Zoom interview. Will NASCAR, especially, which this should be no question, but if he wins the race, NASCAR should hold up the 600 for at least
they did at North Wilkesboro.
Right. Now, granted, you could say
it was an all-star race. And
right, yeah, I was going to say.
The rain made us push it back.
Right. Well, and like, I saw people in the comment section too, that on some of those posts that were like, if it were any other driver, like, okay, yeah, you're right, because Kyle Larson, should have a little bit more, should have better treatment than Corey LaJoie. I'm sorry. I'm like, those aren't the same drivers. It's like if I mean, maybe this is different. Maybe this is too extreme of an example. But if Tom Brady was stuck in traffic on the way to the Super Bowl, would they not hold up the Super Bowl instead of like, oh well, Luke McCown couldn't make it to practice, so he's not gonna play Week 7 for the Browns. Like, it's two different things. It's like this is like, of course your stars are gonna get a little bit better treatment. I know no one wants to hear that, but it's true. And
who puts butts in the seats? Who puts TV ratings up high? People were tuning in to see Kyle Larson.
Those same people aren't clamoring about how unfair it is that no one cares that Joey Logano won the All-Star race because of the Ricky Stenhouse-Kyle Busch fight. So, like, sometimes things take a little bit more of a headline, and that's what kind of grabs the headlines the next day. But no, I saw those people in the comments like, if it were my driver, it's like, yeah, because your driver stinks. I'm sorry. It's yeah. I'm sorry that that Austin Cindric hasn't run well this year, but it wouldn't get that same kind of treatment. But it's
well, if Austin Cindric were running the double, maybe true, but it's such a big story that's putting so many eyes on auto racing. It's putting IndyCar fans watching NASCAR. It's putting NASCAR fans watching IndyCar. It's exactly what the sport needs. So yeah, if you push the start for your all-star race back a little bit, who cares?
Well, and I saw somebody say, like, I saw an article, I can't remember who it was from, that was like, there's a chance that, like, they're like, yeah, I think, like, Kyle Larson has captivated the racing world, and he was like, I wouldn't be surprised if like all 20 Formula One drivers are watching on Sunday.
Oh yeah,
like it's a captivating story. So like, yeah, no, it's understand. Like, I'm not saying the Coke 600 should be pushed back like 2 hours, but no, I'm just saying.
Honestly, I think what happens if Kyle Larson wins, I think you see your victory circle celebrations, but I don't think you see the 3 hours of hat pictures and kissing the bricks and everything. I think you see a lot of that stuff that usually happens behind the scenes celebration wise get pushed to Monday.
Yeah, for sure. Row 1, the final row to talk about.
My pick.
Oh, hold up. Sorry, B. Scott. We got off on a tangent there. My bad. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm not going with Kyle Larson. I'm going with Alexander Rossi here.
Row 1. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
former winner, Alexander. I think Alexander Rossi is driving with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because everybody's talking about his temporary teammate, Kyle Larson. And Alexander Rossi is actually quoted to saying, if he wins, it could honestly be the worst possible thing for IndyCar drivers ever. Because, all of the talk will not be about IndyCar. It will be about Kyle Larson and the driver from NASCAR that came in and conquered the Indy 500. So I think Alexander Rossi's driving with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and I think that could propel him to the victory come Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, and it was honestly, I thought about.
But it's not going to stop me from pulling for Kyle Larson.
No. No, I want to see Kyle Larson win as well. And yeah, no, like I think because I thought about Alexander Rossi too from this row. And I was like, I can't. I want to see Larson so bad. I was like, I can't not pick him. I'm like, I gotta go with him. Because that'll be such a. I don't know why the whole it's gonna be the worst thing for IndyCar is a thing. I don't think it will be. I see kind of the point, but I don't think it'll be taken that way.
I think it would have been a worse had Fernando Alonso won the Indy 500 because of the uppity takes that people have of Formula One drivers over IndyCar drivers. Right. And it's like, well, it just proves that Formula One drivers are the best in the world. And, it's like, okay. Whereas I think if Kyle Larson wins the 500, it just cements that Kyle Larson's one of the best race car drivers in the world right now.
Right. Row number 1. On the outside, you've got Joseph Newgarden, last year's winner. In the middle, you've got Will Power. And on the inside, you've got Scott McLaughlin. And I'm going Scotty Mack. More on him in a bit when we make our predictions. But like Dixon's row, process of elimination was alive and well with me on this one. Because we haven't seen a repeat winner in over 20 years, 2001, 2002 with Elio Castroneves. So Newgarden was out for me. And after winning in 2018 and finishing 5th in 2019, Will Power hasn't finished higher than 14th. And I don't know exactly where he was starting in those races. I know we've talked about Penske's struggles, but he hasn't really been in contention the last few years. So, plus, when you set the fastest pole speed in Indy 500 history, you get the nod from me, even if he hasn't finished higher than 14th himself. So, I'm going Scotty Mack from row 1.
Yeah, I'm going with him too from row 1. Because who would not love to see the Yellow Submarine back in victory lane at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
Right. Yeah.
Crickets. I think that there's not anybody that could say, "Oh, I don't want to see that car there." So I'm going with that because honestly, this row is a toss-up. I mean, I shy a little bit more away from Will Power just because he is the qualifying king of IndyCar. So I mean, yeah, he's won the 500 once. And Joseph Newgarden's been pretty consistent with his time, so it's hard to pick against him. But give me a first-time winner and pulling that Yellow Submarine back into victory lane.